Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And we are a little bit late tonight, but not without purpose. I apologize in advance for those of you who have been waiting. Only a couple of minutes, but still, I don't like to leave people waiting too much longer than they should. We're going to try to start on time always, but tonight on the show, and those of you who know, this is NOLA Theater Talk, and my name is Alan Smason. We broadcast to three different areas on the internet. The NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group, which we created over 2 years ago, has 535 members. We also have, of course, the theatercriticism.com Facebook support page, if you will, for social media, and also my own YouTube channel. So you can get to all of those spots. If you're not a member of Facebook, you can get to YouTube. If you happen to be a member of Facebook, but you're not a member of the NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group, you can still check everything out on the theatercriticism.com Facebook page. And again, those of you who are tuning in tonight, we do appreciate everybody being on. We're going to be talking about the fantastic show, Choir Boy, Alvin Tarrell McCraney's fantastic show that's debuted this past weekend at Le Petit Theatre. But before we get to that, and several of the people who are integral players in the process for putting this on, I did want everybody to know that if you are going to make comments tonight, and you can do that, this is where you need to go to, the facebook.com StreamYard, I guess you might say link. This allows your name to show up. If you don't do that, you're going to show up as Facebook user. And that's not always, indicative of who you are. So if you don't mind sharing, we'll be more than happy to have you. Now, who's coming on first? Well, I've been wanting to have this lady on for a bit because she's taken over a very important role at Le Petit Theatre. And again, I'd like to know a little bit more about her. And I'm sure many of you out there also want to know a little bit more about her. But again, I'd like to welcome to the show Kenna Moore. Kenna, you are the interim artistic director of Le Petit Theatre.
Yes.
And you took over the role how long ago?
Officially about 8 months ago in October 2021.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, after a 2-year period just about of COVID and everything going on with related to shutdowns, it was not exactly a good time to be in theater. Not necessarily a bad time, because there were some creative things that happened during, that 2-year period. But for most part, everybody was upset because the theaters were shuttered. COVID was pretty rampant, and we didn't have a place to go to be entertained. And hopefully, we've now gotten past that point. Theaters have opened. More and more people have gotten vaccinated. We're seeing the infection rates go down, and the variants are much less severe than when we started out. But it was touch and go there for a bit. Kenna, give me just a little bit of background on where you're from in terms of how you came to take over as the interim artistic director at Le Petit.
Well, prior to coming to Le Petit in November 2019, I have been spending a lot of my time producing independent film. That's kind of my background. My background is theater, but I went into film straight after college. And so I was doing that for about 7 years or so, based in New Orleans, but traveling a bit, done a few festivals, documentaries, narrative stuff. And then I came across this opportunity at Le Petit during that time, 2019, for the associate artistic director. Went in for an interview. They liked me, got the gig, and maybe 3 months later, everything shut down because of COVID. So I didn't really get a chance to do anything other than the piano lesson, which was unfortunately shut down during that time. But that was my first production.
And a brilliant production it was. I mean, I have to say, I was really looking forward to seeing that have the legs that it needed to have for more and more people to be exposed to it, to see it, the audience to build. And I thought for sure that it was going to, really do fantastic for Le Petit. But unfortunately, like so many things at that time, the doors were shuttered and there was not much you could do. So film is your first love in terms of your exposure to acting, or?
Well, no, theater was my first love. Like I said, I went to LSU, and that's where I kind of like blossomed into the industry or into the field. But at the time, when I was graduating in, I think it was around 2012 or so, the film industry was really booming, and I just found it exciting as an actor at that time. I found it very exciting to enter into the industry with all the opportunity around. So I quickly started a company. I was an actress, and I was like, I'd rather tell stories. So I started this company, started producing. And like I said, it was easier for me to figure out the cinema world coming from theater through documentary.
Yeah.
As you're dealing with real life stories, it's not so much creation there other than letting, your subjects tell you their stories. And then I kind of found my way about after a couple documentary projects into narrative stuff, started writing myself. So that was just a means to this door, I think, bringing that experience from the community to the theater, and also inviting a lot of my colleagues from the film world into the space as well.
So would we have seen any of your documentaries, or are they still?
Possibly, yeah. A lot of my stuff premiered at the New Orleans Film Society. And
Okay, so
that's where I
could
got
you
my start.
maybe remind us what one or two of them may have been that
Yeah, my first one was called Omitted, which was a documentary about these two young individuals in the bounce music community in New
Okay.
Orleans. One of them is a dancer, and the other one was a hype man, and they were kind of a duo. They went on like television shows, You Think You Can Dance, Ellen DeGeneres, and we kind of just
Really?
their lives around during that time. Yeah. And then after that, I did a short documentary called Church in Black that won Best Short for that year. And then a couple years later, I did a narrative film called She Was Famous. So
Wow.
yeah.
So you've done a lot in your short span of years. You're a very young lady still, so that's fantastic. Well, I know you want to introduce the rest of the people here, and I'm going to let you bring them in as we go through. So first off, Kenna, I know you have the actors who were part of the show. Choir Boy, which again is now going to be running. Is it through the 26th of June? Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so I'd like to bring in, I guess, if you don't mind, would you go ahead and introduce the actors and the parts they play in Choir Boy again?
Sure, yes. So we have Mr. Averis Anderson, who is playing Ferris. Hi, Averis.
Hello there. Hi.
There you are,
And
and
we also have Mr. Roche Washington playing Bobby.
there you are.
And then lastly, but not least, we have Mr. Nicholas Javon playing David.
Now we all got a little smaller, but you know what they always say. There's no such thing as a small actor. Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
So again, I saw the show, and for those of you who have not seen it, it is. I know they announced it was 2 hours running, but it really is about an hour and a half running time with no intermission. And I think that more and more Broadway plays are going towards that model of no intermission, no breaking it up, starting off on time, hopefully, and then finishing up an hour and a half later, and you've got a full experience without having to start and stop all over again. And that's, I think, really more and more people are subscribing that that's kind of the way, nowadays everybody gets their information very quickly off of these devices. I think that's kind of the way, the 3-act Eugene O'Neill plays just are not making it anymore. People want their plays. They want them quick. They want them to be, emotional, but they want it to be done as quickly as possible. So those of you who are part of the process, maybe this is a big trend. I think that more and more things are being done that way. But for those who have not seen this show, I really heartily recommend it. I have to say, I haven't written my review yet because, unfortunately, this period of time was so crazy. I had a play to see on Tuesday. I had a play to see on Wednesday. I had a play to see on Thursday, which was your play on Friday. And I didn't luckily have something on Saturday, but Sunday was Father's Day and another thing to deal with. So I've been trying to catch up. I've been playing catch up. But I would say Averis is probably considered the lead in it, although they're all integral parts. It's an ensemble piece, but in terms of the quote unquote choir boy, if you will, the one who the story revolves around, etc. Averis, would you say that you are, in your mind, fulfilling that role?
I would say that I'm fulfilling the role of Ferris, yes. I do agree, however, that the show revolves, I think, in a sense, around the concept of what it means to be existing in this space in the world of Tarrell's, the Drew Prep School for boys as a choir boy. And I think that sort of in some way encompasses the story of all of us. So I guess I'm a bit anxious about accepting a title as lead because I share the stage with so much talent. As you mentioned, Nicholas and Roche are both integral roles in the show that I think inform the story equally as much as Ferris does. And in fact, I think inform Ferris's story. So yeah, I would say that Choir Boy is our collective.
Right. And as I say, I mean, it really is an ensemble piece, as I said earlier, and I think you touched on it as well. All right, so I always ask people to bring a drink in. Tonight, I really needed this one because I was running so late that I didn't even get a chance to put on a tie, and again, hopefully not a problem. We're going to talk to Nicholas and Rosha next, but Kenna, tell me what you brought in the room. I'm going to tell everybody this is a 16-year-old Aberfeldy single malt in a chilled glass. And I'm going to take my first sip. What did you bring in, Kenna?
Yeah, I made something on a whim. I brought in Maker's Mark and Simply Lemonade with no added sugar.
Okay. All right. And there's no wrong answer, by the way. Averis, what you got?
I have a cold brew tea here, non-alcoholic.
That's okay. That's fine. As I said. Now, Nicholas, we haven't talked to you yet. You play a role that's sort of very important to the overall story, the overall arc of the play. And again, I think of the people that are the characters, it's really marked that the people who are at the school at Drew Prep, who are legacy students, seem to be able to be more assured that nothing bad could happen to them because their parents, grandparents, et cetera, are going to make sure that they stay at the school. But for people who are not, that they don't have that insulation, if you will, that comfort zone there. Nicholas, is that true?
I mean, I guess the question for David is, like, there's so much for him to lose. But in that way, if I think about the story, you know, everybody sort of has that track in general. I think his are more financial than Bobby's, and then that's when we see that scene where it sort of blows up. But it's quite interesting and enthralling. The best parts about the story are that we all have such complex and intricate stories that are deep. However, I think David just is sort of, you know, going through that head on in this very moment, a little bit more than the other boys, I think, in this story for sure.
He's got a lot to ride on it because he's really staked a lot of his future career on his getting through that, et cetera. What did you bring in the room, by the way?
I have some red wine. I love wine. So I got some red wine.
Very good.
Real cute, real simple.
Do you want to mention where is it a domestic red wine or is it a import?
It's domestic today.
Okay. That brings us up. That brings us up to I don't want to call you the heavy, but you are Rosha. You really do play. The guy who is at odds with Ferris, right?
Yes. I play Bobby, who has some issues with anybody that comes in and tries to shake the room that he's in, I think. But I think a lot of the times people like to pin Bobby as like the antagonist of the production, but it's really Drew School to me. That's really like the bad guy of the show. So I enjoyed the way Nick, the director, allowed me to bring a human side to Bobby. But yeah, he doesn't really like Ferris too much.
No, but like you said, a lot of times people do not like change, and he represents real change. One of the things that everybody will know, and I know that maybe not everybody in New Orleans is familiar with this show. It was nominated in 2019 for Best Play. It didn't win, but it was nominated, which is an honor to say that it was one of the best plays on Broadway that year. Absolutely. But it did receive 2 Tony Awards, one for the sound design, and then won a special Tony Award. They don't do this that often, for just the special arrangements that they did in Choir Boy, which I assume you all inherited the benefits of their labor, if you will, on Broadway, that you were able to have those wonderful arrangements of the voices, etc., because they were so spectacular, to say nothing. Carried you along. And I'm not, again, having come from a background that has a little bit of exposure to gospel, not a lot, mostly because most of my people end up at the Gospel Tent at Jazz Fest. That's pretty much the way that we do it. But I have to tell you that having had what we would call, the whole idea, the whole experience of living, with the word and being able to have the ability to make a joyful noise unto the Lord, as it were. That's something that is not just specific to any one religion. It's across the board, but it comes across in the school in the way that they want these young men to be able to approach their spirituality. Who out there has had training for their voice before, or did everybody have classical training in some way for voice?
Why are you laughing?
Training.
No, I didn't. That was actually one of the biggest things for me was singing. I did sing in college in the choir, the gospel choir. I sang at church, growing up. But as far as the actual training, no. And that was the first question I asked Nick. Once I got the role, I was like, "So is there going to be any singing?" And he was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Am I leading anything?" He was like, "Yeah, but we got you." But Cliff, who's the musical director, he was amazing and very patient with us, and as far as making us feel comfortable in that space, even for people like me that doesn't have the training and the background of the theater voice. So I felt very comfortable in the space and perfectly, did a good job with it.
Kenna, this is the second in as many productions you've had. Great music on the stage. The Janis Joplin piece that we did, A Night with Janis Joplin, was also fantastically scripted and also musically very important in the way that it was approached, and all of the different kinds of permutations that they had of the different people who were represented, etc. Is it just I know Choir Boy was rescheduled, and you probably wouldn't have had them back to back like that. But were you pleased with the way that both of these came out? Whoops, sorry. There you
okay. Yeah, I was. The Janis Joplin show was something that we were supposed to do in 2020 at the end of our 2020 season, but of course was canceled or postponed. So we knew that we wanted to bring that show back because there was such a high demand for it at that time. But yeah, it just so happened that, Choir Boy and Janis fell back to back this time due to COVID. Like you said, it was supposed to happen in January. But yeah, we're happy if the audiences are happy and they felt like they got something from the both experiences,
Well, I can't but emphasize the fact that they are singing live, with in many cases there's background, of course, but in many cases their voices are carrying the entire action. And they have to be able to blend those voices together in a way that's pleasing to the ear, but also I would imagine they have to also continue in their characters as the emotional arc of the show advances. And there are points where many of the times that you see the people, they are exposed to several things that they need to be able to shout and maybe to deal with, and they can't because they're singing. And There, you can see though that they're experiencing those emotions. So
Yeah,
I know
I'm
that.
proud of this company. We had a short amount of time to put this together. We went through a lot of tribulation, as you can imagine. Like we said, coming from the original time that we were supposed to do this with COVID, and then coming back with just a couple weeks to rehearse. These young men really put their best foot forward, blood, sweat, and tears. And yes, to your question, I'm still trying to figure out how they find their keys from out of nowhere, their notes from out of nowhere. All three of these men actually do that at some point in the show. Avris, Nicholas, would y'all like to speak on that?
Sure.
Yeah, well, I'll just say first to backtrack to your earlier point about the arrangements, and just want to give credit to Cliff St. Laurent, who is our music director, and in fact is the arranger of all of the pieces in the show. They're all original to this specific production. The script is not formed in a way that there is also a book or libretto that comes with it. So I believe per production, those arrangements are original, but for ours, for sure, those are. So Cliff, our music director, is wonderful in that he's these pieces that you celebrated are his arrangements, and they're really, really beautiful. And I think that there's something and you're asking whether or not there had been classical training, and I've had minimal classical training. I think what is most important specifically to the spirituals, which we know are sort of not separate, but certainly sort of sacred in their own particular way from gospel, is that they don't demand a certain type of voice and a certain skill of singing, so much as they do demand heart and soul. And I think that is what resonates through the production. That is the thing that has carried us, as Roche said, with the sort of limited training that he has also had, that no less we are still able to carry these songs in a way that are not just technically beautiful and sound, and they are that as well, but also that resonate and pierce the soul, which I think is what is most important, particularly within the context of this show.
Was there one particular singer or someone that was in your past musically that you chose to emulate when you saw these songs? Is I want to sound like this person, or was it more just something that was created spontaneously with the the particular person doing the arrangements?
For me, it was something that was sort of found through the process of finding Ferris as a character. My voice as Avris is what it is, but in terms of tone and quality and color, but certainly the inflection and approach to the music was derived in the process of also developing Ferris and how Ferris would approach, phrasing and in terms of specific riffs and inflection on certain lines and that sort of thing. That was definitely a part of the character development process for me.
And Roche, I know you said you didn't do a lot of singing ahead of time, but was there one particular selection that you did that you sort of said, yeah, I think I got this now?
Well, the song Motherless Child, once we did learn it, we learned that one kind of later on to the end of it. I felt very comfortable with it. I think mainly because I was able to connect to it more than just with the singing voice, because we had been learning all these intricate songs along the way. And this was one of those songs that you had to actually connect to with your spirit and your mind. Me as an actor, that was one of the fun songs I felt that I got most comfortable with the quickest, and I was less worried about performing it for an audience.
Yeah, and again, I think I'm trying to remember some of the people who did Motherless Child. It's a fairly famous piece. I may be wrong, but Odetta maybe comes to mind. And again, I think anybody who saw the movie Woodstock remembers Richie Havens' incredible version of that. But again, the way you all do it is I think more traditional, and again, it's at a pivotal point in the show that it comes, doesn't it?
Yes, and I would like to add that a lot of my emotion comes from Nick because the way he leads the song in, I almost feel like I'm back at church in the old Baptist church back in the days, and you feel the spirit and the emotion every time he leads me into that song. So the emotion that you guys get when I start singing my part, a lot of that credit comes from Nick. I just wanted to put that in there for him.
Very good.
I echo that, Roche. I really do. It's been.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
I was just gonna say it's been so fun performing on stage. You asked about training, and I remember like singing in my mom's Forerunner when I was like 8, a song for her, and then flash forward to now or a couple years back, I'm in college and I'm studying acting, but never did any singing. So it's only been in the version of like in my room or in the shower. But I there is an immense amount of confidence and trust that I feel on stage because of Cliff and everybody in the room that I just sort of like will hold with me forever. But I've never felt as confident on stage singing aloud in this way. And I think a lot of it is, trust, throw it up. Where do you get the first note? I don't know. Let's go for it because we rehearsed. We've sung with each other. So there's a layer of like I said, an immense level of trust and confidence of having each and every one of us to know that we'll find our way back if something were to go, left. But I mean, honestly, that's the most exciting parts I think that we find on stage for sure when things are a little wonky.
Well, and today, is we're celebrating, of course, Juneteenth, the holiday, and that sort of brings me back to sort of a reflection. I'm not sure whether or not this play would speak as loudly. I'm sure it still had a lot of legs, et cetera. But after that 2-year period with Black Lives Matter, et cetera, and now having the installation now of a new federal holiday that commemorates the end of slavery, and that whole path that we've gone through and process, I think that perhaps it's very effective that we've got these stories out here that we're telling. And Kenna, I don't know, you might want to talk a little bit more about your vision. Are these kinds of stories going to be more and more in the offing for Le Petit as you move forward as the interim artistic director?
Yeah, what's important to us at Le Petit right now is focusing on stories that haven't had a platform before, unfamiliar voices to Le Petit, and what it has been expected of us. So yeah, anything that obviously encourages diversity, inclusiveness, all of these things that we hear a lot that is very necessary. We want to make sure that we're speaking to that in our programming. Not only who's on stage, but who is behind, the curtain, who is a part of the creative team, what that team looks like, how are we being inclusive in that process as well. All of that is important to us right now moving forward with, programming.
And of course, this is Pride Month, and that also reflects on the, this particular production has aspects of sexuality involved that have to be also manifest, and we deal with that as well when we look at it and we observe these characters and how they're affected by that, and again, taking place in a very rigid preparatory school for young men, and it's a minefield. I would imagine that a lot of people who have been through a process of going to an all boys school, or in some cases an all girls school, would have that sort of experience. But not all of us have been to that kind of first off a private kind of preparatory school, and then the second thing for boys. And in this particular case, it's meant for young men of color. So again, they're all at different aspects of it, but all of it comes to manifest. And again, the fact is that the playwright, who many people may say, I know that name, Tarrell Alvin McCraney won an Academy Award for Moonlight, the movie that also dealt with some issues about gay men, and a gay man being in a position where he was helping to raise a young man who was needing to have a father figure in his life. And in this particular case, he's raised some other issues dealing with young men and the need for trying to find themselves. So it's got a lot going to it. It really does. Again, one of the other aspects is some of the older folks who are not on tonight on the show, but you've got somebody who's in the show who's representing, trying to keep everything sort of stayed and trying to maintain the academy as it is, and trying to live up to the old traditions, etc. And I've got another gentleman on the faculty who is put to the limits of his endurance in terms of his ability to connect and the changes that get put to him. And again, there's a lot of issues that are raised, and there are some issues again dealing with language and things of that sort too that come out. I don't know, when you all are on one side of the stage, we're on the other side experiencing this. But I wonder if maybe, Avers, maybe you might be able to just lead the discussion a little bit and tell me how you approached your character and what you kind of wanted to resonate for him.
Sure. So Tarrell, wrote a really masterful piece, I think, in writing this. And as a Black queer man, it's one that resonates very, very deeply, very personally, and very close to what my experience is. And so I think in coming to this piece, what was important to me was to be my most honest, authentic, vulnerable self. I think that's what Ferris has demanded. And in navigating all of Ferris's stuff, and there's a lot, as you have suggested, he's a young man who's coming of age within the context of masculinity, more specifically, and it is a very specific experience to come of age within the context of Black masculinity, especially as an effeminate Black man. Ferris is that in a particular way that is flamboyant and very, very apparent. It's something that he wears, I think, even without doing so intentionally. And navigating that within the context of Black masculinity calls for a lot of nuance and strategery, which at Ferris's age, as clever as he is not something that tends to be present in high school. You just don't have a whole lot of information that allows you to navigate that with a whole lot of tact. No less, Ferris is approaching this in the best way that he can in order to not just serve himself, but to make space for himself, but to hold these other men accountable around him for making space, just for holding all of our traumas and experiences. And yeah, I think my approach to answer your question has just been to hold space myself as an actor, to tell Ferris's story in the most honest, authentic way, particularly as it relates to my own.
And again, I don't want to release all the information or spoil anything for anybody, but he has a journey that he goes on, and I wonder if I could ask Roche to maybe tell us how you approached your character in terms of dealing with perhaps why he feels that he must oppose Ferris in the way that he does. Was there anything in your past that you used to build on that in terms of anything else you'd dealt with similarly in life?
Absolutely. Actually, I attended an all-boy private school, boarding school, kind of like Drew, for a few years after Hurricane Katrina, when we were displaced from New Orleans. But the writing was there. Like Avery said, Tarrell did a magnificent job writing the script and writing out these characters. And I went to school with some of these Bobbies, so I knew exactly once I saw it, once I saw the words he was using, once I saw the action and who he was targeting. But a lot of it is misguidedness. A lot of it is because he's come under the tutelage of his dad and his uncles and his grandfathers. They all are teaching these things in the home about, toxic masculinity and all these things. So it's less of Bobby being this horrible person, and which is I really didn't want to get that across, but I did want to drive it home that this is stuff that he stand on because that's what he was brought up on all the time. So he's just a misguided young man. Everybody wants to hate Bobby, but I don't hate him. I didn't hate him. I love him. I just think he's very misguided, which is like a lot of our youth are nowadays. It's not that they're just these hateful people. They just don't know, and they don't have the tools or the people around them to guide them in the right direction. And that's what I love about the production is it gives you a choice, and it shows you that there's many different ways of viewing that. And I think by the end of the production, Bobby gets a second thought of that, when he gets to see the experience of Ferris in the play.
And Nicholas, I don't want to leave you out of this equation. You are bridging sort of the tradition and also you also are trying to be close to your friend to Ferris in many ways. Some that may scare you in terms of your character, in terms of the way you approach that, but it's a part of the play that I don't want to let out of the bag, so to speak, and I think it's really important to sort of keep some of that, let's say, as a mystery. But in terms of your character, where would you say his loyalty lies? Is it to himself? Is it to Ferris? Is it to the school? I mean, he's got his own troubles that he's carrying with him, and I wonder how you dealt with that in terms of your experience in trying to translate that into your character.
Mm-hmm. I think what's lovely about it is I didn't have to make a choice, right? I think David actually lives in the middle of all of those things. I think he wants a lot and needs a lot. What's lovely about the writing, Avery and Roche have said before, is, I got to read it, and what was beautiful was that the words tasted good, and then it's like, okay, now I get to figure out what this person wants. Like, what would he wish he want to say to Ferris in this moment, or to Roche in this moment, and then you read the play, and you don't hear all of those desires and dreams. You hear what's on the page, and so I think that was really a lovely part of doing the show was, not actually having to make a choice, actually living in the middle and feeling the weight of all of that. And what's lovely is that I feel blessed to be in a room where I can receive that from Averis and I can receive that from Roche and everyone else in the cast, and it still make me stir. It doesn't feel, stale or fake. I'm striving for honesty, and what they're giving, I'm trying to give back, and I hope I am doing those things. But I think not making a choice is actually the most liberating part about David and playing David. I don't have to know the answers, and I don't think David knows them whatsoever.
Well, you've got another few weeks or so to keep these characters with you, and they've probably already taken you on a bit of a journey so far. When the show is over, etc., I want to ask everybody, what are you going to take home, if you will, from Ferris, from Bobby, and from David, individually, I'd like to hear what you all think, this play says to you in terms of the characters and what you're going to remember most about them. Let me start with Averis.
Yeah, Ferris has been quite a journey. It's been a journey of learning and unlearning things from my own personal experience as a queer Black man. It's been a vulnerable journey of exploring my own traumas and navigating that as an actor, as Ferris, as Averis. And I think Ferris has been healing in that there is something that feels, although it is still discovering itself because Ferris is a young boy, there's something that feels very liberated about Ferris. He has a certain level of confidence and a level of permission that he gives himself to be that is really inspiring. And he takes up space, which is something that I will absolutely take from Ferris. There is no timidity in his approach. And I think that is certainly something Averis could learn to move forward with from Ferris.
All right, Roche, what about you? What about your character of Bobby? Will you take with you? What aspects of his character are you going to remember the most?
I think the thing I'll remember most is that everybody's human. And learning Bobby, it allows me to give people grace more often. I feel like so many times we like to be harsh or angry or mad with people because of how they feel a certain way. But we have to understand that everybody has a belief system and a reason why they believe what they believe. So that allows me to give a little more grace to people for that. But I think that most important, I can take something from each one of the characters, honestly. I love the way David said, or what Nick said, that David realizes sometimes, and the courage that Ferris has to be himself in this place at such a young age is like commendable. But yeah, the spiritual journey that we had on coming to find these characters all together through the process of the play is also something I'll never forget. Like, I'm going to be in shambles after 26. But yeah, I'll take from Bobby, to give people more grace. Because I think at the end, he does, in his heart, I don't think he'll never say it at this point, but I think he does find some grace for Ferris.
Okay. And Nicholas, final one for you is what are you going to take home? What do you think that David will say to you after the show's ended?
So I know what it's like to be 17, queer, Black, in high school, figuring it out. And I think every time I'm doing David, I'm recognizing how I'm going back to that place of being 17 in high school, dealing with those things sometimes. And so if anything, I think David is really, really getting me to understand that I need to be kind to my past, present, and future self. Like, just be kind to that child, be kind to your present, and be kind to your next 10 years, be kind to the next 80 years, because there's a lot in your way and a lot that you may not know. But if you're just kind to yourself, that's 1 foot forward for sure.
Well, it's fantastic. I mean, I don't think I could ask for better responses. And the fact is, you are living those characters now. They're part of your being. And, while the production is still alive, you'll be experiencing them as a part of your persona. And that's, I think, the way that it should be, that you should. I know there was a little bit of a slip where Roche said, David. Oh, I mean, Nicholas. So, I mean, it is to a certain extent that those characters are who you are right now, and sometimes it's a little bit difficult to separate. That's great though. Kenna, if I may ask, I know you got your mic off, but tell me a little bit in terms of this particular production's going to end, end June 26th, et cetera. What other types of you mentioned some of the shows that you're planning and doing that are going to reflect more of the diversity and things that you're looking to do to talk about the stories that you want to tell. But are there any that you can reveal what, that you're looking at, for if they're similar to this or not? Go ahead.
We have, I can tell you our next season if you like.
I'm ready.
So we are starting off this fall with The Play That Goes Wrong. After that, we're doing The Color Purple. After that, we're doing Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. There's one other play that we're still in the works. It's not 100% confirmed, so I'll keep that a secret for now. But then we're closing with The Curious Incident of the Dog at the Nighttime.
Which, if you've never seen, I recommend it as just one of the best theatrical experiences I've ever seen. I saw it on Broadway. The National Theater, of course, presented it, but it was just one of the most incredible productions I'd ever seen. I don't even know how they're going to do it because, the staging of that is just mind-blowing. I mean, there are just things that come out of underneath the stage and on the side of the stage, and just it just blows your mind if you've never seen it. I just don't know that I'm sure you're gonna pull it off, but I just can't imagine how difficult. And I have to tell people too, in many cases I recommend people sit in the downstairs in the orchestra, but with The Curious Into the Dog in the Night, I say upstairs to get a full view of everything is like amazing. It was like when I went to go see the Rocky the musical that Lynn Ahrens and Stephen Flaherty had done. I asked the guy, I said, should I be downstairs? He says, no. He says, let me tell you my favorite spot. And he says, we cherry picked the seats right on top in the front, because what happened was in Rocky, and that's why they haven't staged Rocky, the stage actually moves out onto the area where the seats were from rows A through K or whatever. And so my seat, which was on the front of the balcony, now became about 15 feet away from where the performance space was. So it was really quite wonderful. But again, that's a great testimony to the fact that you all are thinking about some of these things in terms of what the audience is going to have. Now, The Play That Goes Wrong. Now, that is a comedy. I know some of the producers who have been involved with that, et cetera, and that's sort of a coup. But and I wondered why one of the other theater companies couldn't advertise it. Now I know why. So
we can talk about that offline.
Yeah. Okay. Well, they got their PR out earlier than you did, but I was saying what other company might be doing. Now I know for a fact. So but that's fantastic, and that, I guess, you all will be the regional premiere for The Play That Goes Wrong, right?
I believe so.
So those of you who have not seen it, I have to tell you, it's one of the funniest things that has been on Broadway. I mean, it is, yeah.
Physical comedy, yes. Yeah. And it's been a while since we've done a comedy, and we think it's time, and it'll be a great start to a new season. This past season was a rough one for us. It's very difficult, like we, spoke about earlier. It's been very difficult to produce during these times, but I'm proud of us for, sticking to it and getting all our shows up, despite it all. And, we look forward to next season coming back harder,
Well, Le Petit, may not, at one point they were the oldest continuously operating community theater in the United States. And I know they had to go down a little bit for a few years. I'm not sure if somebody passed them up or whatever, but they are one of the oldest continuously operating, or one of the oldest operating theaters, because they were down a little bit while they regrouped and reconnoitered and got themselves together. But I think that there's many good things in store for Le Petit. I think that this show is just one of the many aspects to the fact that you all keep coming back with really good, thoughtful works, and that the people that you are involved with are all top notch. Every one of the actors on that stage that I saw this last week were superb. And I have to say, my review's not out yet, but I promise you it will be a very good review. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of the kinds of works that you've done so far, but more of the things for next season. So that sounds like a really promising season, and I hope that people will support you. Let me ask you a question: are the season tickets available for next season already? Or are they on sale yet, or will they be on later?
Almost in a couple weeks.
Okay, I'm gonna hold you to that, and
Okay.
and please let me know when they do.
Okay.
We're getting towards the end. We have a little bit of time left. I want to find out from our actors. Avers, what are you going to be doing after Choir Boy ends? What are some of the jobs you have lined up, or auditions you're going to be doing?
Sure. Well, so I actually currently resident out in Chicago doing theater there. So I'll be returning to Chicago. I'm only here for this contract. Beginning in August, I'll be beginning a contract of Dreamgirls with Paramount Theater out in Illinois. So I'll be back in Chicago after this. So in case you happen to be in the area, feel free to come up and check us out.
So do you know what role are you going to be playing?
Well, so I will be ensemble for Dreamgirls.
Okay.
Chicago. Yep.
Okay, no problem. And Roche, what are you going to be up to?
Well, normally I do TV and film. So I have movies coming out this year. Mona Lisa and the Blood Moon. I play Barry, the receptionist, which is going to theaters in September, I believe. I'm not sure of the date. But I'm also excited for Renfield because I'll be playing Trevante, a part of the Coda group with Nicolas Cage and Nicholas Hoult. That's coming out in April of 2023. And I also have an episode on Interview with a Vampire that's premiering sometime this fall. So, yeah.
Well, thank God for vampires, or you wouldn't have any work at all.
Yes.
And Nicholas, what's on your plate coming up?
Hopefully a vacation. No, honestly a vacation. I teach during the year, so I teach at the New Orleans Center for Creative Arts. So hopefully a little bit of a break, and then go into the school year. But also this year, I'm really going to be applying for schools because I want to go back to school to get my master's. So that's what I'll be doing, and also just feeling the creative world out. Attaching myself to things that are honest and true and lovely and connect with me, and then see where things go. But that's my plan.
Nick, you work at. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Vacation soon. I just had a director text me asking to get your information. So hold up on that vacation, okay?
Okay, I will.
and you actually are on the faculty at NOCA?
Yeah, I teach in the drama department. Yeah.
I was going to ask under what department. So not singing, but acting.
Yeah, I mean, I love words. I love words. I love good text. I don't know. When it lifts off the page and I see it visually, I'm like, yeah, that's good. So I'm very lucky to be able to teach text analysis and playwriting. And I don't, write plays. I write a lot, but I don't think I write plays as a playwright. I'm not there yet, but there's something lovely about being in a room and honestly just having a conversation with students that I was just a student. So they're not far, but they're not really near. We're really in a position where we're able to have formidable conversations about words.
Yeah,
so that's what I do during the year, and it's been awesome so far. I love it.
And the headmaster, is that Silas Cooper?
Silas Cooper is now the president of the school.
So and of course he came from the drama department too. So you've got some good history there in terms of being supported by people there. And I remember I saw him in a pretty remarkable production of To Kill a Mockingbird. We played Atticus Finch. So that was some years ago. But he's quite and I think he was also in the Trip to Bountiful that they did some years ago with Janet Shea. Again, NOCA's a great place to start, and there's so many people. I mean, we know Wendell Pierce and people like Harry Connick Jr. and so many people, the Marcelluses, et cetera, who came out of NOCA and the great tradition that they've had. But absolutely, acting is a part of what they do, and you just keep up the good work. I think that the fact that you're able to have an impact on a lot of young people coming up is very important. And keep doing what you're doing, because it is important work that you're doing. Well, I want to thank you all for being here tonight. Again, I know we got started off to a little bit of a shaky start. I was a little bit late coming. I wasn't able to dress properly for my show. I always wear a tie, and I apologize. I just don't want you to think that this was casual night for me. But I actually got involved in an event, and by the time I got out of there, they kept me a little bit longer than I wanted to be there. And I'm going to next time make sure I leave a little bit earlier and that we get this thing done. But I'm glad to see you all and to have seen you last Friday. Hopefully other people will be able to see this show. For those who are not at Media Night at Hamilton tonight, that's another story. I would normally have been at Hamilton, but that's a story that will be told, as we say, off air later on, as to why I'm not there tonight. But again, I hope that you all do very well and continue with this. Keep it going. And again, I want to thank you for being with me tonight. It's really important that we get the story out about what's going on in the theater community. I started this show up, sort of on a whim, saying, the theaters are closed. We need to have a way to connect to one another. And I was very fortunate during the pandemic era to be able to put on some shows and readings and things of that sort that were very important to keep people connected and for them to be able to flex their artistic, if you will, muscles. So again, I appreciate you all being here. I'm going to say goodnight to you all publicly right now, but just stay with me for just a minute so I can give you a private goodbye. And again, I want to thank you all for being with us. Again, Nicholas, thank you for being here. Just hang around just a little bit longer. Avarice, the same thing for you. Best of luck. Just hang around. And same thing, Roche, I'll be right back at you. And Kenna, thank you again for being with us. I hope that next time that you have another production, perhaps Don Scott will be able to come on as well, and we can talk a little bit about the future of Le Petit. But you're doing a really good job getting, all of these plays for next season together, and of course, under challenging circumstances, doing what you're doing, with Le Petit. So I hope that people will take me up on my recommendation that they go see Choir Boy, playing now through June the 26th at Le Petit Theatre. And let me say goodbye to everybody else. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Alan Smason. Again, this is NOLA Theater Talk, and we thank you for being with us tonight. We ran a little bit under what we normally would. We were a little bit late, but again, those of you watching on the NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group, we thank you for being with us tonight. Or perhaps you're on the theater.com Facebook page, and we thank you also. And if not, on the YouTube channel, you can see all of that archived on those particular pages. And again, we appreciate all of our guests being here with us tonight. I'll be back in 2 weeks' time. Next week, taking a week off for a little bit of a vacation. But I want to remind you that we'll be back in 2 weeks, and hopefully I'll be able to broadcast a little bit of a reminder as to what's going on. Take care of yourselves, and as always, I'll see you at the theater.